All right, guys, thank you for joining me. Today is Wednesday, the 12th of February, and um, we're gonna do something a little bit different. I haven't really gotten into like current events and different things like that, but I wanted to sort of just touch on some things that have been. Hopefully, you guys can hear me with this microphone. Just wanted to touch on some things that have been occurring in the news with our President Donald Trump. Now, I want to make sure that I'm clear with you. I'm not into politics. I don't really care who is the president that is, within power. I don't really care about the political parties. Um, I'm not a Republican or a Democrat, so I know that when we talk about, uh, government or whoever the president that is in power at the time, all the Republicans, if it's a Democrat president, all the Republicans are, you know, agreeing with me. And then if it's a Republican president and I say something critical, then it will be all the Democrats are agreeing with me. But I really don't care. Really, what I want to look at is what is prophecy saying right now. And I think if we look at it, we should be able to see that the Bible is prophesying to us exactly what we're seeing right now. I, first of all, um, I have not gotten into Daniel 11. Okay. There are, there's some other things that I want to cover before I even get into current events, before I even get into Daniel 11, before I get into Revelation 13. I mean, there's a lot of things that I need to cover. And as you can tell, we're right in the middle of our series on the sanctuary, and I'm currently in Daniel chapter 8. And I really, really want to continue that series, but when I see things that are happening in the news, I really must take a short break, and I need to cover what's happening. Okay. Now, the positions that I typically hold are not in they're not in concert with traditional Adventism. Okay. Traditional Adventism has, its commonalities. I'm probably not using the right language, but when traditional Adventism when they interpret Daniel chapter 11, at least the end of Daniel chapter 11, they tend to join Revelation 13 and Daniel chapter 11 into one prophecy. In other words, what traditional Adventism is saying is that when you read the end of when you read the end of Daniel 11, it's really hidden code for Revelation 13. So all the symbols that you see in Revelation 13, they're also symbolized in Daniel chapter 11. We just have to kind of cross figure them and see which one matches Revelation 13. I totally disagree with that. I think Daniel chapter 11 is Daniel chapter 11. I think Revelation 13 is Revelation 13. And what I mean by that is Daniel chapter 11 is giving us what will be happening regarding the civil governments of the world. Revelation 13 is more so focusing on what will happen in the religious components of the world. Okay. So I want you to, when you look at Daniel chapter 11 and Revelation 13, don't look at them as converging into one chapter. Look at them as parallels that are going the same path. Okay. You have a religious path and you have a civil path. All right. Don't try to combine them together into one. Daniel 11, as a matter of fact, there's a quote by Ellen White where she talks about how that Daniel chapter 11 is focusing on war. Okay. And so when we look at that, we should understand that Daniel chapter 11 is focusing on the civil powers that be. Okay. So in order to understand what's going to happen at the end of the world, you have to You have to see, or let me say this, in order to understand how close we are to the end of the world, you got to look at the what should be happening in Daniel at the end of Daniel chapter 11 and what is happening at the end of Revelation 13. If you see both of those things start to bubble up at the same time, then just know that we are getting close to the end of the world, okay? And it is high time, ladies and gentlemen, that we really, truly get our lives together with the Lord. Truly, truly cultivate this relationship. Ask God, what is it that I'm missing in my life? What is it that I need to give up, and what do I need to give to you? Because it's not in our own strength or power. There's nothing that I can do to be saved. It's all about what Jesus has done for me, and Jesus has done for you as well. When we look at Revelation chapter 13, what I want you to understand, guys, is that the Bible says that there was a beast that came out of the earth. As Adventists, we should recognize that that beast is the United States of America. Okay. When we look at the two horns that are on this beast, Ellen White says that they represent republicanism and Protestantism. Two horns like a lamb. Okay. We have a separation of church and state. We don't have a king, nor do we have a pope. Okay. That was the concept of America. However, Ellen White also says that at the end of time, there will be, she suggests that the Constitution will be null and void. Okay. They will basically go against what the Constitution has always, said that we would be, which is a separation of church and state. Okay. That's essentially what she's talking about, is the separation of church and state. So we understand that those two horns like a lamb are going to sort of become one horn. Okay. This is not what the Bible says, but I'm just sort of reading in between the lines and saying there will be a convergence between the two horns. Okay. So republicanism and Protestantism. Okay. And I want you to, I'm sort of going to take a little bit of liberties with this. Okay. Republicanism and Protestantism. I want you to look at that as church and state. Okay. Republicanism is the state. Protestantism is the church. Okay. So look at those two as church and state converging into one another at the end of time. All right. Now, I'm going to even take a little bit more liberties in saying this. Democrats and Republicans. Okay. This is not what Ellen White says. This is not necessarily directly what the Bible says, but I'm sort of taking some leeway into making this connection. Okay. And hopefully you'll understand why I'm making this connection in just a moment here. One is for the state, one is for the church. Okay. Now, obviously we know, both sides are, they're both doing dirt on both sides. So I don't want to make it sound like one side is, good and one side's bad, or one side's bad. They're both bad. Okay. But I want you to look at this church and state, this church and this state, this Protestantism and republicanism. I want you to look at that in terms of Republicans and Democrats. Okay. One is for the state, one is for the church. Although they're not really for the church or the state, they're more about exercising the authority of their components. One wants the state to become bigger, which is the government. One wants the church to become bigger, which is, religious authority. Okay. Neither one of them are doing it in good faith. Okay. So I'm not going to put my faith in the Democrats in order for my rights and for me to have a fair share at, an abundant life, nor am I going to put my faith in Republicans to make sure that the church is flourishing in the United States of America. There's corruption on both sides. Okay. But just look at the concepts that I'm giving you. Church and state, Republicans, Democrats. When the Democrats are in office, they want the state to gain more power. When the Republicans are in office, they want the church to gain more power. So what's happening is both parties are increasing the powers of both components, okay? And this is necessary for the time of the end. The state and the government must have an influence upon us and must have a level of authority over us. But at the end, the church has to be able to exercise that authority that was gained by the state, okay? So understand the concept. Remember, pagan Rome rose up under power, conquered the whole world, and then the church assumed authority after that power had been gained or ascertained, okay? Same thing that is happening here with the United States of America. One party is setting up the other party, okay? Now, I'm not saying that they know this. They may totally not know this, okay? But this, according to how my understanding of prophecy is going on, this is what is happening. Both sides are gaining power and authority in order to climax at this very Satan's last hurrah, and that is the personation of Jesus Christ. Okay. So that is what's happening in Revelation chapter 13. Now, we understand that there are some things that Project 2025 is talking about. Now, I want to make sure we also understand that Project 2025 is not, as currently constructed, is not a national Sunday law. Okay. However, we need to be, we need to keep our eyes open because this could be the beginning of a national Sunday law. All right. What makes us Adventists I was going to say on edge, but that's not the proper terminology. What makes us take notice, what makes us sit up and take a look and keep our eyes focused is the fact that you have a president of the United States that is focused on matters of religion. And we understand that when a president is focused on certain matters of religion, it seems to foreshadow what is going to take place in Revelation 13. Okay. And so remember, eventually the church will take over. That's where we're going with this. Okay. If you're found being a Republican and Democrat, and if you're found liking this because, this is President Trump, or if you're found hating this because you're a fan of President Trump, you're already going down the wrong path. Adventists have to get out of the two-party system, okay? I'm not saying don't vote on issues. That's if you want to vote, that's fine. I'm saying you cannot be a fan of the two-party system because fans are really fanatics, okay? Now, let's get into Daniel chapter 11. Like I told you before, I have yet to do Daniel 11, so this is not a full study on Daniel chapter 11. The study on Daniel chapter 11 is probably going to take weeks, okay? But I want to do this because of what I'm seeing happening in the news, okay? Now, I want you to look at Daniel chapter 11, verse 41, because in my studies, verse 41 is where we are at in prophecy, okay? So verse 41 is we are waiting on verse 41 to occur. Now, in verse 41, there is something that occurs, what I've always called the event. Now, what is this event that the Bible talks about? Okay. This event is stated the very first sentence, the very first part of the first sentence in Daniel chapter 11, 41, that very first phrase, not phrase, but the first half of the sentence, that's the event. Notice what the Bible says at the first part of this verse of 41. It says, he shall enter also into the glorious land. That's the event. Now, I want to make sure that you understand, I don't know what will preempt this event, okay? I can guess, and that's essentially what I'm going to do today because I'm not a prophet. But I'm going to guess, and I'm going to give you suggestions that we may actually be seeing the fulfillment of verse 41 within, our lifetime, within a short period here. Okay. Now, when it says he shall enter also into the glorious land, there's a few questions that you need to ask yourself. The first question that we need to ask ourselves is, well, who is he? Right? Who is he? Seventh-day Adventists, my fellow church members, I am a Seventh-day Adventist, okay? In case you didn't know that. Seventh-day Adventists are papal-centric. And what I mean by that is just like how evangelicals are focused on Antiochus Epiphanes, Seventh-day Adventists are overly focused on the papacy. Okay. I'm not saying that we shouldn't focus at all on the papacy. Just hear me out. I'm just saying there is a saturation of attention on the papacy. And I don't think that is, I can't say warranted because it is warranted. But I think other things deserve attention as well. Daniel chapter 11, verse 41 is traditionally believed to be the papacy. Okay. I'm not necessarily denying that, but I want to give you another viewpoint of this, right? Ellen White talked about an end time power that consisted of the dragon, the beast, and the false prophet. She called it a threefold union, okay? Spiritualism, Catholicism, false Protestantism, however we want to put it, that's the three-prong agenda that Satan is using for the last days, okay? Spiritualism, Catholicism, and false Protestantism all combined, joined together for this last hurrah of Satan. That's the final power. For some reason, traditional Adventism is ignoring the United States of America. Not completely. I want to make sure you understand. Not completely, but for some reason, there's some strange... It seems that the papacy is the only power at the end of Revelation 13. Look at it closely. Look at Revelation 13 and tell me, do you only see the papacy at the end of Revelation 13? You see a power that comes up out of the earth. That's the United States of America. That's false Protestantism. That same power revives the papacy. But it's not like the United States of America just walks off the set. The United States of America is still there. As a matter of fact, the papacy is not the one making everyone receive the mark. It's the United States that's making everyone receive the mark. Ellen White says, and I did not get the quote, but she says that the United States will be the last power to persecute. It's the last persecuting power. That tells you that the United States is at the end. In Daniel chapter 2, she says the feet, now she doesn't say the toes, she says the feet represent Protestantism, okay? Church and state. She's talking about the United States of America. Ellen White is putting the United States of America at the end of prophecy. You should be able to see this, guys. Now, If the United States of America is at the end of prophecy, along with the papacy, don't you think that Daniel chapter 11, the most literal prophecy in all of the book of Daniel, would somehow make some mention of the United States of America? Of course it would, ladies and gentlemen. Daniel chapter 11, the end of Daniel chapter 11, is the United States of America and, to a minor degree, the papacy. Okay, they're acting together, they're acting in concert. Okay, so when the Bible says he shall enter the glorious land, this is not the papacy. This is the United States of America. What is the glorious land? The glorious land is the land of Israel, right? You should know that. Somebody said, no, Tori. Anything after the cross is spiritual. And so all these things have to be, they're not literal symbols. Well, I disagree. To suggest that there is no, now I didn't say Israelites, I didn't say the people of Israel, I'm talking about the land of Israel. To suggest that the land of Israel has no place in end time Bible prophecy is just, it's crazy. But this is what traditional Adventism is teaching us. And I'm trying to tell us, I'm trying to help us see that there is a place for for the land of Israel in Bible prophecy. You think that when Satan personates Christ that he's not going to go to Israel? That would be crazy. The one place on earth, when Satan shows up as Christ, the one place that he's going to go to is the land of Israel. All right? Now, so when it says he shall enter the glorious land, this is what I'm talking about, is what I call the event. There is some event that I've been talking about for years now, actually. I wrote about this, I think, in 2021. It might have been even 2020. That there's going to be a pretext for the United States militarily to go into Israel. Now, the United States military has never been into Israel. Now, and I want to make sure I qualify that, because there have been a few soldiers that have gone, maybe 100 soldiers, but they've gone in for more like training, helping with air defense. But when it says he shall enter into the glorious land, this is not a training exercise. This is a military presence that is going in for a specific reason, okay? And it's not to sit around and play dominoes. This is a military incursion. When it says, and he shall enter also into the glorious land, there is a reason why the United States is going into the glorious land. And it's possible that we are witnessing that pretext today. I want to show you something. But before we do that, let's just finish the verse. It says, and these shall escape out of his hand, even Edom, Moab, and the chief of the children of Ammon. I need you to understand what this verse is saying. Edom, Moab, and the chief of the children of Ammon today represents the country of Jordan. Okay, those three tribes of people settled in what is modernly called Jordan today. Okay, so look at the context. You have the glorious land, and you got its neighbor to the east, Jordan. Okay, that's what verse 41 is talking about. He shall enter into the glorious land, and many countries is a supplied word, but it's correctly supplied, because you'll see later on in the chapter it talks about different countries that America comes against. Okay, so countries is correctly supplied. Okay, so I'm going to read it with the supplied word. It says, and many countries shall be overthrown. So that's what's going to happen. The United States militarily is going to enter the glorious land. Many countries will be overthrown as a result of the United States entering into the glorious land, which is the land of Israel. That's Palestine. That could be Jerusalem. That could be Gaza. It's somewhere in that region that the United States is going to militarily enter in. But it says that Jordan will escape out of his hand. Okay. And I want you to notice why this is significant, because Trump has suggested, for those of you who we should all be up to speed of the tragedy that happened in Israel on October, sometime in October a year ago. But we understand there's been war in that region since that point in time when there's a terrorist attack there. And we understand that Gaza has been basically wrecked by Israel. But notice what Donald Trump is suggesting. It says here, this is Forbes online. It says Trump Gaza proposal. Trump insists U.S. will take Gaza as Jordan's king visits White House. Now think about what you're just reading here. We just read a verse where the Bible says that the U.S. will enter into the glorious land, but Jordan will escape. You guys, we got to pay attention to what we're reading here. I'm not even trying to give some sort of strange interpretation to Daniel chapter 11. I'm literally just reading the text. I'm not trying to over interpret the text. I'm literally just reading it. It says we recognize the United States is a power that will be in power at the end of time, is the last power to wage war against God's people. It says he will enter into the glorious land. The glorious land can only be Israel. Don't give me that it's the church and all these strange theories. The glorious land is the glorious land. Now, if this were the book of Ezekiel or Isaiah, maybe so, because those books were written in the context that Israel would have basically continued to be God's people. Okay. Daniel and Revelation have built in with an understanding that the children of Israel have lost their regular standing with God, and there is a new people, and that's the church. The church is combined with Jew and Gentile. Okay, so I want to make sure we're not preaching a replacement theology here. We are simply saying that Israel failed, God created the church, and now Israel and the Gentiles are part of this church. Okay, so Israel is still God's people if they accept Christ, and Gentiles are still or God's people because they accept Christ. Okay, so you should now be able to see that in Daniel chapter 11, this proposal is the result of possibly the U.S. military going into Gaza in order to secure Gaza and get rid of the Palestinians and to build up Gaza as Trump has declared that he would. Now, is Trump being serious? We can never know what Trump is really thinking. Okay. He's a half genius and half crazy. Okay. I don't know if this is the genius side of him or is this the crazy side of him. I don't know. But you should be able to clearly see that prophecy is telling us exactly what is going to happen here. Now, I could be totally off here. This may not even be the pretext or this may not even be the event that will start Daniel chapter 41. This might not be anything. It might be something totally different that we're not seeing. But I'm making you aware that this is a possibility for the United States militarily to go into the glorious land.